Good evening, folks. Ken Hovind here and the crew at Dinosaur Adventureland in lovely Lenox, Alabama. How did you like Lenox today? Getting to see the whole city, all 37 people. Good. Chad and Chelsea visiting from Dallas, and sadly, they chose the grandma tour. Boo, so they don't get the certificate for the real tour. Actually, I think Chelsea's the one. Chad, you wanted the real tour, didn't you?
Didn't Chris and Rhonda chose the grandma tour too, didn't they?
No, but we're going to make a new one that says, I took the grandma tour, and have a bunch of old people in the four-wheeler. So have a turtle in the front, yes. Oh, well, next time. All right. Bring a group down and visit Dinosaur Adventureland. Teachers, tell your students to come. Bring your students for a field trip. Public schools, welcome. We have all kinds of groups coming through here. I got number 50, Hawaiian shirt. Somebody sent me this today in the mail. Lady Di bought me, every couple of weeks she'd show up with one she got at a garage sale for 50 cents, you know. So I got 49 of them in my closet. Now I got 50 Hawaiian shirts. And the atheists, every time they see Hawaii or the name Hawaii or Hawaiian shirt, it's going to remind them of me. Yeah. Living rent-free in their mind. Okay.
Send a bunch to Arm Rock.
We should, yeah. Triple X. This Saturday and Sunday, I'll be speaking at First Baptist Church in Rayford, Florida. Let's see, Rayford, Florida, way over here between Jacksonville and Lake City. If you want to come to Rayford, Florida, this Saturday afternoon at 4 o'clock, Lord willing, and then Sunday morning, and then driving back home with some cows. A friend of mine in Lake City, Florida, is donating some miniature cows, zebus. So we'll have them here. Yes?
How are you transporting them?
In my van.
That's a joke.
No, Ernie's loaning me his truck and cattle trailer.
Nice.
I was about to say that's some.
That would be crowded in the van, wouldn't it? Yeah, that would be bad. Anyway, so if you want to come, let's see. Dog and cat skulls. We're going to start a collection of different. If your dog, wait till the dog dies, okay? But then if you put the head on an ant mound, they'll clean it up for you and then send us a skull. We want skulls of dogs or cats just to show the wide variety. There are two different cat skulls. That's not evolution. It's still a cat. They don't get it. Boy, they don't. Guy called me today, so bent out of shape about, well, what's the word he used? Don't you concede that there are ring species, you know? Yeah. And that's new speciation. They can no longer interbreed. Yeah. Well, see, that's evolution. I said, no, they're still the same kind of animal. I never could get him to see it. They use words like concede, or do you recognize evolution? Do you admit evolution happened? They use all these key words, you know, you gotta catch them on that. Say, no, you believe in evolution. They hate that part. You believe, that's your religion. Okay, anyway, let's see, cat skulls. If you're bored this summer, come on down for a couple days. You showed up here a couple hours, took the tour, and put you right to work. You guys been here a couple days, put you right to work on the bamboo bridge. And it is fun work around here, isn't it? Rich, can you take them in the morning and show them where the bamboo is, and let's cut a bunch more?
I gotta work on that fence tomorrow.
That's true. We got to get the fence up. I'll drive them over there and show them where it is.
They
Okay.
promised they would get to put the irrigation up, not do bamboo.
No, they're doing the irrigation. They're doing the bamboo bridge. Okay.
Oh.
We need 100 small projects down at Dinosaur Adventureland: carpentry, electric, painting, cleaning, landscaping. If you have any cool items you'd like to put on display in our museum, on loan, or give us to, or sell them to us, we'd like to have a cool, we already got a cool museum, but we want to have the coolest, is that a word? Mm-hmm. The coolest museum, which means we need to get the air conditioners fixed. Okay, there.
Yes.
No, I can donate or loan them to Dinosaur Adventureland. Let's see. If you love the Lord and his creation and want to help join us in building this is a community effort, the whole thing, Dinosaur Adventureland. Pick a day and say, you know, I like that topic. I'd like to make some science experiments. For instance, on day 1, God said, let there be light. So you may want to have your kids do a science experiment, and when you're done, donate it to here. Something on light, electricity, magnetism, gravity, anything like that you could do, okay? Day 2, air, some cool science experiments on air. We'd like to get a whole variety of things we can use to teach kids about the components of air, air pressure, stuff like that. Air bubbles, giant bubbles like that. Let's see, okay, day 3, plants, day 4, the satellite, our sun, moon, stars. Any cool science experiments you want to do on that field. I like globes of all the planets if you can find those. Day 5, and day 5 is going to be fish. Does Steve already have, does he already have saltwater aquariums?
He says he does, I don't know.
I think he has the equipment. Saltwater and freshwater. There's a guy I met one time, he had freshwater and saltwater aquariums in his house. He loved aquariums. And he thought, I wonder if I can mix these fish together. So he slowly added salt to the freshwater aquarium, just a little bit every day. He calculated out how much for the volume of water, Slowly raised the salinity to 1.8%. Natural seawater is about 3.6%. So he slowly lowered the salt in the saltwater aquarium over a period of like a couple months, maybe a month, I think. He added salt to the freshwater, lowered salt in the saltwater. When they both got to 1.8%, he mixed all the fish together and they did fine. Then when he put them back, the guppies, I think it was, he put them back in fresh water and they all died. They had adapted to salt water. That's adaptation. That is not evolution. It was still a fish. Anyway, we'd like some cool experiments. If you want to help us, go to drdino.com and join our 777 club. We ask folks if they can give $1 a day. We can stay open for free. We've had 55 baptized here now in the lake. And we're winning souls all over the place. Okay, let's see. Make any checks to CSE. And if you'd like to help us get some vehicles, with this one we're using the soup out of it. How many tours did I take today on that thing?
I think about 5.
About 5, yeah. Yes, sir.
That's not the same one, is it? That one looks clean.
That one looks clean. That was when we first got it. It has. For the next one, we want to get a Yamaha 6-passenger and show the kids, hey, they're similar design because they do a similar thing, transport people. That's not evolution. That's a variation of a common theme. Anyway, we'll talk about all that, or the Bobcat 6-passenger, or the Honda. Anyway, we want to get a bunch of those Kudzosaurs. Okay, Q&A time again tonight. I apologize, it's been a really busy day. Did not get part 5 done, but I'm working on it. I did get some done. It's just couldn't get it all done. Too many irons in the fire, not enough people tending the fire. Okay, questions. This one from Dwayne. Let's see. Question, if everything came from the Big Bang, the universe, life, etc., it still has the potential to evolve. Then wouldn't the laws of physics also need to evolve and take into account any changes in relation to the planet's mass, increasing or decreasing? And if each planet has the potential to evolve differently, then the laws of physics would need to be different throughout the universe. But we don't see the laws of physics changing. Is this a good argument against evolution? Dwayne. Well, Dwayne, first of all, there's no life on any other planets, okay? There's no evidence of any life anywhere outside of Earth. And so the argument would be moot right at that point. Or moot right at that point. But if there were life on other planets, they would have to have very different... the laws of physics would be the same, but the physics of that planet would be different. Like on Jupiter, you'd weigh, 3.7 times as much, or whatever it is, If you got off a spacecraft in Jupiter, you'd fall down, face down, and lay right there. You couldn't get up. On the moon, it's only 1/6 of the gravity, so things would change. Your heart pressure, blood pressure would have to be different, air pressure. There's no other planet habitable for life. There's not even any proof of other planets. Now, there's a website that keeps track of 3,700 planets that have been discovered around other stars. But when you read the fine print, did they actually see a planet? No. They saw the star get dimmer for a minute, and they assume a planet is going around, going in front of it, occlusion. Oh. So the star twinkled. Oh, planets. That's their evidence. Okay. Maybe there's a bug on your telescope. Maybe you got a speck in your eye. Okay, but so there's no proof, I'm using the word proof carefully, of any other planets outside of our solar system. There may be millions of planets, but there's no proof of any besides these 8. If you want to call Pluto one, these 9. I still think Pluto's a planet. How many think Pluto still ought to be a planet? All right, so you can remember, let's see, my very extravagant mother just sent us 90 parakeets. That's how you learn the names of the planets in order. Mercury, Venus, Earth, Mars, Jupiter, Saturn, Uranus, Neptune, Pluto. Who cares? I just lost interest. Anyway, so yes, there's no proof of planets anywhere else. There's certainly no proof of life anywhere else. And there's so many things on this planet that are just designed perfectly for life. The type of air we breathe, the amount of gravity, the food supply, all the symbiotic relationships. Okay, next one from Greg. I was watching the Hovind theory. My question is, if the mammoths were frozen and buried at the beginning of the flood, were they then underwater, entombed in ice until the water receded? Oh, good question. What I cover on my video number 6, Greg, let's see, Alt-DV, that's video number 6, slide number 93. The mammoths are big, hairy, hippie elephants. There are 4 kinds of elephants that have lived on the planet. There's the African elephant, which has the big ears. Asian elephant has the small ears. Then there's mammoth and mastodon. They're very similar. Mammoth has rounded teeth. Mastodon has flat teeth, like the ones we have in here are technically mastodon teeth in our museum. Okay? Who cares? Anyway, the mammoths are big, hairy, hippie elephants, and there is some indication there could be some still alive. There have been sightings that certainly appear to be mammoths. You might want to Google that sometime. But anyway, mammoths are sometimes found frozen. Oh, right here. Found frozen like the Beresovka mammoth, standing up. How do you freeze an elephant standing up? And it's not like just 1 or 2. I mean, millions of mammoths have been found. Mammoth tusks are so common they sell them by the pound, out of Siberia especially. These red dots indicate where frozen mammoth have been found, all across Siberia and in Alaska. The yellow dots indicate where frozen rhinoceros have been found. Rhinoceros don't live in Siberia. Not much lives in Siberia, actually, okay? So I interviewed a guy named Charles Morrow, 81 years old. He told me in the early 50s, about 75 people at a restaurant he went to, at some feast they'd been doing excavations up north, ate mammoth meat in New York at a dinner for the Arctic Institute of North America. That was his phone number back 20 years ago. I don't know, I doubt it still is. 20 years ago, he's probably dead, 81 at the time. But he said they served mammoth meat. I said, how was it? He said, well, it tasted kind of like beef that had been in the freezer way too long, which would make sense. Anyway, what about these mammoths? Well, some of them are frozen in the upright position. There's undigested food still in their mouth and stomach. They died of suffocation. There's no water found in the lungs. The small ice crystals in the blood indicate they probably froze in 5 hours, which requires 300 below 0 Fahrenheit. Well, it never gets 300 below 0. The coldest it has ever gotten on planet Earth, according to the National Pornographic, is minus 127. Where is it? Right there. Coldest temperature ever recorded, minus 127 Fahrenheit. So where do you get 300 below 0 Fahrenheit? Well, I was curious about the mammoths. I remember when I was doing research for this years ago, I thought, oh, wait a minute. How do you freeze an elephant in less than 5 hours? So I called Bird's Eye Frozen Food people in New York. I said, if I stuck an elephant in the freezer, what would happen? You know, it was silent on the other end of the line for just about a minute. Finally, one of them said, you would have a crowded freezer. I said, well, yes, I understand. Okay. How long would it take to freeze an elephant? And they said, 5 days. How many of you have ever thawed out or frozen a large chunk of meat like a turkey or something like that? Okay. The outside freezes and then it traps the heat inside. And just to thaw out a turkey takes, what, 24 hours?
Takes about 48.
Yeah, 48 hours to thaw out a large frozen turkey. Okay. So to freeze a mammoth, it would take 5 days to freeze all the way to the middle. Well, by then, all the food in the stomach is going to be digested because the stomach acid doesn't know he's dead. It's going to keep working. So I said, no, I need to freeze my elephant in less than 5 hours. They said, well, you'd have to cut it up in little pieces then and put it in the freezer so it gets to more surface area. I said, no, I got to freeze him in one piece. They said, well, you're going to have to dip him in liquid nitrogen, something about 200 or 300 below 0 to freeze him faster. Well, it never gets that cold. Minus 127, coldest temperature ever recorded. It might have gotten colder someplace else, but nobody was there with a thermometer. But still, that's pretty chilly. How do you freeze a mammoth in less than 5 hours? Well, the only place you're going to find something that cold, who's this, Greg, is outer space. Outer space is minus 450 Fahrenheit, 3 degrees Kelvin, minus 170 centigrade. There's a fourth temperature scale. Do you remember what it is?
Who cares?
Who cares? I lost interest. Okay. So I was preaching in Alaska back in '99. I talked to a guy who worked for an oil company in Barrow, Alaska, up on the North Slope, as far as you can get. I preached in Barrow, Alaska. We walked out on the sand dune out to the end. He said, this is the northernmost point in America, right into the Arctic Ocean. I said, what about the tide? He said, there's no tide in the Arctic Ocean. And there isn't, by the way. Strange, no tide. Well, never mind. Okay. I said, do you ever find anything interesting when you're drilling for oil up here? He said, you wouldn't believe the stuff we found. He said one time we drilled through 100 feet of permanently frozen ground, permafrost, never thaws out, and we hit a tree standing up. Because we save the pieces we drill out, lay them on the shore so we can see what we're drilling through to get a core sample. He said we drilled straight through a tree that was 300 feet tall, standing up, under 1,000 feet of permafrost. Well, there are no trees in Barrow, Alaska. There's one tree in Barrow, Alaska. It's about the size of that one in the corner back there, the fake one. It's in a Chinese restaurant. They keep it alive all winter with lights on it, trying to babysit. And they're so proud of that tree. Hey, let's go to the Chinese restaurant. We can see the tree. Oh, okay. I mean, it's this big around and this tall. Anyway, how do you get 300-foot tall tree under 1,000 feet of permafrost? Well, on my video number 6, the Hovind theory, I talk all about how the original creation was different. I suspect it was covered by a canopy of ice, maybe 10 miles up, maybe 2 or 3 inches thick, solid ice, held up either by the magnetic field or by air pressure like an inflatable building, or both. It shattered and got broken because of Noah's flood when the fountains of the deep broke open. The shattered ice would be sucked in and dumped around the poles because super cold ice is magnetic. So you'd have rapid snowfall at the North and South Pole. Let me skip up to slide 188.
Yeah, show how the magnetic field does that.
Well, super cold ice is magnetic, can be attracted magnetically. It would tend, most of it would be dumped on the poles. A rapid snowfall. So the mammoths would be buried, standing up in super cold ice, snow, crystals, and they would suffocate. No water in the lungs. And they'd freeze in less than 5 hours. To me, it answers all the questions. Anyway, the greatest ice thickness ever measured, 14,000 feet of ice. Wow. Pretty thick. When they look through that ice, sometimes they find strange things. North and South Pole. North Pole, ice is floating on water, so it drifts around, but the South Pole primarily. Let's see. Scientists have reported discovering the first set of dinosaur fossils to be found in the interior of Antarctica. And the Earth is round, and it does spin, by the way, okay? Fossils are said to be the remains of a plant-eating dinosaur. Now hold it. There are no plants down there. None. A plant-eating dinosaur 25 to 30 feet long would have quite an appetite, wouldn't he? That lived 200 million years ago. Oh, yeah. In what geologists call the early Jurassic Age. There's no such thing as a Jurassic Age. I would like you evolutionists to explain something to me. You are claiming these layers are different ages, aren't they? Where's this material coming from that is younger? Is it coming from outer space being deposited on the Earth? Isn't all the material have to be reshuffled of what was already here? They say this one's 70 million and this one's 50 million. Oh, so 20 million years later, it rained out of the sky? Where's this material coming from for these new layers, guys? The bones were spotted in a small section of exposed rock alongside the mountain, which lies 400 miles from the South Pole. There are no trees at the South Pole. Nothing. Thousands of well-preserved leaves in Antarctica sparked a debate among geologists over whether the polar region, rather than being blanketed by a massive sheet of ice for millions of years, enjoyed a near-temperate climate as recently as 3 million years ago. Well, I don't buy the 3 million years for a second. But yes, it was a temperate climate. The world was beautiful. In January, Mr. Webb, with David Harwood, an assistant professor of geology at University of Nebraska in Lincoln, and some other guys, found a deposit of leaves on the side of a cliff in a desolate stretch of the Trans-Antarctic Mountains, 250 miles from the South Pole. The leaves, compressed like subsequent layers of ice, look like fossils. But unlike fossils, which leave only mineral traces of their original organism, the leaves retain their original cellular structure and organic content. They're frozen leaves at the South Pole. Surprising dinosaur track found in Alaska. Well, now, interesting. See, the Earth has 2 North Poles. We have a magnetic North Pole, where your compass points, and a geographic North Pole, where we spin around. Lenox, Alabama happens to just be almost exactly right on the line where your compass lines up true north. Any place off of there, you're going to be, magnetic pole and real north is going to be different. Who cares? I lost interest. Anyway, so I think the only explanation of the frozen mammoths at the North Pole, or in the polar region, I should say, are rapid snowfall, probably from the pre-flood canopy, or option I used to teach a long time ago, still feasible, an ice meteor flying through space. Most of the comets flying around through space are big ice balls, snowballs. If one of those came close to the Earth, gravity would suck it in. It would be attracted like a magnet if it's flying anywhere close. And as it builds up speed, it would shatter at Roche's limit, 2.44 times the diameter of the larger planet. 8,000 miles times 2.44 is 16, about 11,800 miles, somewhere around there. And so it would shatter. And being magnetic, most of the ice again would be dumped at the pole. So it could have been from space or our own canopy, one of those two. Let's see, North Pole, South Pole, frozen mammoth standing up. Okay, enough on that. Watch video 6 if you'd like more on that topic. Let's see, here's from Chris. I have a question about symbiosis. I can easily understand how symbiotic relationships work, and it's very interesting, how it screams creation. However, I don't understand how after the flood there are still so many symbiotic relationships over the entire world. Okay, what a symbiotic relationship is where two animals, or an animal and a plant, or two plants, require each other to live. That one cannot live without the other one. Symbiosis. Example, there's a cactus called the yucca cactus. Do we have one growing here?
No. Yes. Well, no, we have a yucca plant.
A yucca plant. There's a moth called the yucca moth, Y-U-C-C-A. The moth builds its nest and lays its eggs on the yucca cactus, which the yucca cactus is only pollinated by the yucca moth. So the moth can't live without the cactus, and the cactus can't live without the moth. So which one evolved first? That's a symbiotic relationship. Plants are breathing in carbon dioxide, giving off oxygen. Animals are breathing in oxygen, giving off carbon dioxide. A symbiotic relationship. Which one evolved first? Yes?
It's a trick question. They came at the same time.
They came, well, day apart. 1 day apart, yeah. Plants on day 3, sun on day 4, animals on day 5 and 6. Yeah, that would work great. But there are literally millions, if not billions, of symbiotic relationships. Termites chew on wood and swallow it, but they can't digest it. They have little bitty single-celled organisms in their gut. You talk about tiny, inside the gut of the termite. Those little critters digest the cellulose. Now they can't live outside the termite, and the termite can't live without those little critters. So which one evolved first? We could go all day with symbiotic relationships, and I don't think evolution offers an explanation for any of them. Evolution doesn't offer an explanation for anything, in my humble, totally unbiased opinion. Yes, ma'am?
The whole human body is like a symbiotic thing. We can't live without a heart.
Yeah, the heart requires the blood, the circulatory system, and yeah. What's good's the kidney without the tubes coming off the kidney, or the bladder? There's just the whole system. Mm-hmm. What if you evolved the biceps first and didn't have a triceps? First time you flex your arm, you're stuck the rest of your life. Don't you have to have both at the same time?
You have to have a reproductive
Opposing systems. It's silly to believe in evolution. You'd have to have help to be that dumb. But they got plenty of help. Okay. Question. Okay, here's it is. Here in Pennsylvania, in Adams County, a specific ant that relies on a specific flower, and that specific flower can't live without the ant. I'm not familiar with that one. So my question pertains to the distribution and development of this specific case of symbiosis and how so many of them exist. After the flood, how did these symbiotic relationships pop up everywhere when everything was wiped out? It's as if they would have to be distributed at the same time in the same place. Okay, good question, Chris. I don't know the answers to all these, but keep in mind, for the Noah's flood, Noah was only required to take animals in whose nostrils was the breath of life. Noah didn't take insects on the ark. Insects can survive a flood just fine. And many plants can survive a flood just fine. Just because Noah's in the ark for a year does not mean the whole world is covered for a year. Parts of it might have been only covered for a couple of weeks. As the crust of the earth was broken up, it'd be flexing up and down, and the water would be rushing all over the place from the flexing of the crust of the earth, all driven by one simple force, gravity. Walt Brown has a great section in his book on that in the beginning. So it could be that the symbiotic relationships would continue right on. The ants that are already living on that plant before the flood would drift around on log mats with those plants and be rooted again when the water goes down after the flood. Case closed. It could be that those ants in Pennsylvania, let's assume that's the only place they live. I don't know that it is. Well, they might have been distributed worldwide before the flood, and that's the little pocket of survivors right there. No problem. The little bitty minor questions that I think are not significant about creation, evolution, problems before the flood are so minor compared to the problems of evolution, which are ginormous in my humble opinion. And I hope that helps, Chris, okay? Let's see. One more here, and let's quit. Whoa, two-pager. Big Bang. Jonathan writes in. Get a better slide for you to look at. There, isn't that cool? Wow.
Glacier scratches.
Glacial grooves, yeah, scratches in the rock from sliding. I hope and pray you're well. I've enjoyed watching your videos. I love your commitment to the glory of God as you continue to spread the truth of the gospel of our Lord to this dying world. No matter what the scoffers may say, I continue to pray for the lost as often as I can remember to do so. If the Lord forgave me for so much, how much more should I be forgiving and pray that their eyes be opened as well? I even pray for the Lord to open the eyes of R and Ra. That is one angry dude. Actually, he's not R and Ra, the sun god. He's R and Nelson. Okay, but he is an angry dude. You're right. Okay. He is no match for the Lord. Let's see. Bunch of Bible verses here, which Jesus Christ might display his... Oh, that's another Bible verse. Okay, I have a few questions I hope you can shed some light on. As I was trying to decipher some of the atheist religion known as the Big Bang balloon, expanding universe, or string theory, if I understand correctly, the Big Bang expanding universe looks at the Big Bang not as a typical explosion from a center point, but more as a four-dimensional universe suddenly appearing. Jonathan, is there anybody on the planet who can explain what a four-dimensional universe is? Are they just putting words together and making it, oh wow, four-dimensional sounds cool, because nobody understands it. Even they don't understand it.
Carl
Yep.
Sagan had a good a brief speech about what it could be. I mean, I don't understand it. I have to watch the video again, but Carl Sagan did.
What on earth could a four... Our brain, I don't think, is capable of comprehending, or let alone explaining, a four-dimensional universe. I told the story. I went to a restaurant one time in Mobile with a friend of mine, been friends for years. He lived at our house in Dallas. I was in Longview, Texas for about a month while he was getting a job. He said, Brother Hovind, let me take you out to breakfast or lunch or whatever it was. I said, okay. We're sitting at McDonald's, and he said, let me show you something cool. He took out two pieces of a 3x5 card, and he wrote on one Mr. Flat and Mrs. Flat. And he laid them on the table. He said, I want you to imagine Mr. Flat and Mrs. Flat live in a two-dimensional world. All they know is length and width, no height at all. I said, okay, I got you. I taught geometry for years. I got it. He said, Mr. Flat looks at Mrs. Flat. All he sees is a line. Now, he can go around and see that she's actually a rectangle, but he only sees one dimension. He perceives the second dimension. So he sees one, he perceives two. Okay? Now, you and I actually only see two dimensions. We see width and height. We don't see depth. We perceive depth because we have two eyes, and you have depth perception, but you could take a snapshot of exactly what you're looking at, and it would look exactly like what you're looking at, even though it's on a flat piece of paper. Right? So we see two dimensions, and we perceive the third dimension. I said, gotcha. He said, now suppose I, as a three-dimensional being, would like to reveal myself to Mr. Flat and Mrs. Flat. So over here I stick my finger through the table. Mr. Flat comes over, and all he sees is the cross-section of my finger, a circle. He says, honey, I've seen Kent Hovind. He's a circle. But over here I stick three fingers through the table. And Mrs. Flat comes over, and she says, oh no, honey, I've seen him. He's three circles. Now, neither one has a clue what I'm really about. Not a clue. But they're probably going to split the church and start the church of the one circles and the church of the three circles over all this when it's over with, and probably get a divorce and everything else. So, but you can't put a three-dimensional being into a two-dimensional world. It cannot be done. You can do it slice at a time and maybe perceive it, maybe, a three-dimensional. But four-dimensional, this is pure baloney. It's not comprehensible by anybody on the planet. So they make up these phrases and just as an excuse to get people to keep believing the dumb religion of evolution. Okay, so if the Big Bang was a four-dimensional explosion, can anybody, or this business about the bending space, bending time and space, that is a bunch of hocus pocus. Nobody understands that. Nobody can explain that at all.
But the Big Bang was it was all squished into a one-dimensional dot.
A one-dimensional dot, exactly what is that?
Then it turned into four-dimensional.
That's what they're saying.
universe.
Just exactly what is a one-dimensional one-dimensional dot? Non-existent. Okay. Let's see. Then they link to the string theory, which claims there's real magic happens. You know, multi-universe. Now, one question. Does this religious dogma create more problems than it solves? I think so. I think the string theory is ridiculous, that everything's held together by strings. I just cut them all. Four-dimensional universe is supposed to be bang into a must be pre-existing to bang into a three-dimensional universe. 3D empty space is something, so the law of non-contradiction must apply here. 3D empty space cannot exist and not exist at the same time and in the same place. You got a good point there. It can't exist and not exist at the same time. I'll go along with that. This is an utterly absurd argument. Ex nihilo. Out of nothing, nothing comes. Let's see. If the 3D empty space didn't really exist, wouldn't that mean the 4D universe would bang into non-existence since there was nothing to begin with? Shouldn't it theoretically disappear? Well, this is from Jonathan. The whole idea of the Big Bang, I think, is ludicrous. Everything squeezed into a dot smaller than a period on a page. You could not squeeze a bowling ball into a dot smaller than a period on a page under any amount of pressure available on planet Earth. You couldn't squeeze a gallon of water, let alone the entire ocean. How much water is in the ocean? And all this is on tiny planet Earth, which is a speck compared to some of the other planets and stars. And they want to put all that into a dot.
Can they compress an electron or a neutron or a proton? Can those be compressed?
Can electron, neutron, or proton be compressed? I can't imagine how you could.
Well, because I guess if everything was compressed into a period on a paper, it wasn't water itself, it was just hydrogen.
Still.
Or whatever the first element was, hydrogen being the first.
Right, and then if it was compressed, all these electrons now have enormous energy whizzing around the nucleus, apparently eternal energy. Don't the electrons ever get tired?
Right.
They've been whizzing around the same speed really fast for a long time. Yes?
Isn't it true that matter cannot occupy the same space as other matter, so therefore you couldn't create that dot anyway?
Good point, Rich.
Two things can't occupy the same space. People try it on the highway sometimes. Without much success, okay? How many of you tried it a time or two? Have you? Okay, well, thank you for the question. Sorry I didn't get more on the part 5. We're getting to that. If you'd like to have a debate or a discussion on the topic of creation evolution, call 855-BIG-DINO, extension 2, to schedule it. We apologize, our phone has been down to take orders for the last day and a half. We finally got it all fixed. SIM card burned up. But if you've been trying to call about ordering some of our material, try again. 855-BIG-DINO, extension 1, and we'll get some stuff out to you. If you want to come visit Dinosaur Adventureland, come on down. Bring a hammer. Call extension 2 before you come, though. Run it as a background check to make sure you're not going to come here to hurt somebody or whatever else bad people do. Okay, you guys apparently aren't bad. Did she check you out? And you're fine. Okay. All right. Thank you for joining us. See you tomorrow. Tell your friends about our channel. Like us, subscribe, and do all that stuff. And pray for us. We want to win the whole world to Christ. 55 baptized so far in our lake, going for 5 million.
Julie sold 100 copies of Are You Being Brainwashed book today.
Wow.
Yeah.
One person.
Thank you. Sold 100 copies today.
One person bought 100 of them to give out.
Give out to every public school kid you know over the summer and pay them $10 to read it. You'll change their life. It really will. life-changing. Not because I wrote it, because it's the truth, and it exposes the dumb theory of evolution for what it is. All right, see you tomorrow. Bye.